Hello, everyone. We're here at another session, an opportunity to interview yet another writer. And this one's a great one. I'll tell you, he's been Writer of the Month with Dancing Elephant Press, and he's written lots of articles for many of the publications here on Medium. He's also an excellent artist. I mean, you should see his sketches. They are just incredible. Never miss an opportunity, if you get it, to see those, if you can kind of tweeze it out of him a little bit. Anyway, he's a great guy, and it's my pleasure to introduce Rick Allen. Rick?
If there is one thing I want to be when I grow up, it's happy. And so,
What a great goal that is. Yeah. Be happy.
So I decided I'm going to be an artist, said the engineer. I had a friend who talked me into registering for a creative arts festival in Minneapolis. I was living in Illinois. And I had already, before the divorce, I had already registered for it, paid for it. And so I had to go. And it was a creative arts festival.
Yeah.
And it just, the timing was just perfect. So I went to Minneapolis, and that was the seed. I came back from Minneapolis after a 2-week vacation and decided I would paint. Even worse, I'll paint people.
Oh.
So I became a portraitist. And within 6 months, I was making a comfortable living. After the divorce, money was a concern.
Sure.
Because, it was not a community property state. So everything went. and child support also went.
Yep.
So in 6 months, I had an income. I was out on the road. I was painting, doing live sketches and painting larger color portraits. And I did that I was a traveler for 5 years. And after that, then I did gallery shows and a few other things. And for 10 years, I painted beautiful women. If you think about it, who's going to commission a portrait? A husband with a beautiful wife, a father with beautiful daughters. Yeah, I get the benefit. Beautiful women need to be painted, so I do that. I lucked into an agent who wanted to represent me in Mexico. And so I let her. She was very good at her job. She paid my bills, except for my food. She wouldn't pay for my food. Gave me a car and driver and a suite way up in a resort hotel over the beach. So for 2.5 years, I'm living on the beach and single. So
that's a tough life. I really feel sorry for you, Rick. I know that was a real down period of your life, obviously.
yeah. Well, yeah, it ended up with a young lady that I did not paint, who was beautiful in her own right, who chased me for the next 3 years until she caught me.
Mm.
And she became a wife, an ex now. But for 16 years, I was very happy. But she was Mexican. Her English was better than mine. And I brought her here, got her green card, and eventually she became a citizen. But after the wedding, not long after, still pulling rice out of the hair, right? And mind you, then I was an artist. I wore a ponytail. But soon after the wedding,
the territory, probably.
Yeah. 1985 was not my best year. I only reported $85,000 in income.
In 85, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah. And so she said to me, I can't live on that. And I said, well, what do you want me to do? She said, well, figure it out. Now, I refer to her lovingly as the princess.
Yeah.
She's from one of the families that rules Mexico.
Mm.
And she is an absolute delight. I love her still, but eventually we couldn't live together. But I had to reinvent again. So I saw 1985 computers. I had been using computers in the Air Force in the 60s.
Yeah, I was in the Air Force as well.
Yeah. So I was familiar with using them, but the way I used them was stacks of punch cards and be very careful with the stacks. Yeah.
They actually taught me to program those IBM 360s.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. Go ahead.
Yeah. And we got the 360s before NASA. How about that?
Yeah.
But I taught myself to program because when I bought my first personal computer, it wouldn't do what I wanted. So I learned to program. And that put me in a user group, and I wrote a book because they couldn't figure out what to do with it either. So I wrote a book to tell them how to operate this thing. And that was the first civilian book I wrote. And so I became a contractor. I didn't go to work for a company. I contracted with companies, and several of them were Fortune 500s, one Fortune 100. One of my clients was Microsoft Consulting, and I did very well. I liked it. My final contract was American Express. I can't remember the name of it. Their tourism services. They're the ones that do the cards.
Yeah.
And so I designed and led the team that built the chargeback system for American Express. But during that time, I had moved to La Paz, Baja California, lovely place. And I met a fellow there at a computer shop, an electronic shop, and he was having trouble. The people that ran the shop couldn't help him, so I did. And he took me to his house, and I got him straightened out, and we became friends. Friday night, I would go to his house, and we would have some beautiful tamales, fresh tamales that his wife and the maid made. And they were wonderful. And we spent a lot of time together. And when I came back home, I was obvious back home to Phoenix. Phoenix has been my home for 43 years, but I've lived outside of it for 7, maybe 8 years in other places, other countries.
Right.
And so I'm back here. I'm working for clients here in the Valley. And I keep getting these phone calls. And it's him, and he says, I want you in Kenya. And I say, I'm not going to Kenya. And he says, yeah, but we need you. Said, no, sorry. And then I get another call, and Nigeria needed me. And then it was Tanzania. And I said, I'm not going to those places. I'm here. I'm working. I have clients here. And eventually he called. And by that time, I wrote about it. By that time, you know the ring of the phone. you know who's on the other end. It's that day, it's that day of the week.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was Klaus. And Klaus says, I need you in Belgium next week. And I thought about that. I said, what am I going to do in Belgium? He said, don't worry. It's just a 6-week course. You're going to learn some software. And I said, why do I need to learn new software? And he said, because that's what's running on the VAX machine that you're going to be operating in the Dominican Republic. And I said, oh, wait a minute.
How do we go from A to Z? How do we get there?
Yeah, so I asked him lots of questions. We talked for a week. And eventually the last call was, go to the airport, your tickets are waiting. So I flew to Belgium. I tied up my loose ends here and flew to Belgium and spent 6 weeks enjoying chocolate and great coffee. I mean, it's wonderful. And at the end of the 6 weeks, I flew. I was near Antwerp. It was an old medieval town, still had the moat and part of the walls, called Leer. And my favorite chocolatier was local. I mean, within walking distance of the hotel. And so I go back to Miami when I'm done in Belgium, and I meet Klaus at the airport because I had a layover and he happened to be there. So he said, you can't go back to Phoenix yet. And I said, I have to go back to Phoenix. I live there. And he said, no. You're going to live in the Dominican Republic. And I said, no. How long is this going to be? He said, the contract's going to be a year and I'm going to pay you this much money. And I leaned back and I said, I can do that for a year. Oh yeah, I can do that for a year.
It's surprising how much money can change things, change point of view.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Rick. With all these wonderful experiences, and by the way, this is as engaging as your writing, so you should know that. With all these wonderful experiences, why did you turn to writing? I mean, I've seen your drawings. My God, they're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. I've always had an appreciation for art and creative things. I do a lot of creative stuff myself, but it's just your ability to capture an image, and that is just, it's incredible. It's really, truly a gift. So why you've got all those things and all those cool things that you did when you were younger. Now, why did you suddenly turn to writing? Or it probably wasn't suddenly. I mean, obviously you've written some things before, but why medium? Why now?
It just felt right. I was living in Phoenix, up on South Mountain. We have mountains in the valley, inside the valley. I was living on South Mountain and I wasn't really happy. I was doing odd jobs, programming. I wasn't painting very much anymore. And strangely, I was thinking about moving to Wisconsin. My daughter lives in Wisconsin. She has a farm there. I was thinking of going up there, even though I really don't like the cold. Really don't like the cold.
Yeah.
Since for 43 years that I've been in the valley, relatively, everywhere else that I have lived since I've been here has been south. It's been at least as warm, yeah, including the Caribbean, yeah. But I got the chance, instead of going to Wisconsin, to move here into Fountain Hills. Fountain Hills is a planned town. It's not one of those with all the grids and all that. No, this is in the foothills. We have tall mountains and we have ridges coming off the end of the mountain chain. And I live on one of those ridges. And the town center is right at the bottom of where those ridges come together. We have a fountain. It's the second highest fountain in the world.
Wow.
The lake is man-made. It was planned from the beginning. And it's a wonderful town. It was designed to hold 30,000 people. We can't grow in space. We have Indian reservations on two sides, a national park on the one side, and the city of Scottsdale on the other. We can't grow. So with 30,000 people, we have 4 championship golf courses.
Think
Think about that.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did all that get you to writing? That's the part I want to know. How did that happen?
I moved up here with my partner. It's her house, and I'm here one day. I was building a website for a client, and I'm thinking, this is really dumb. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this for money. That's a stupid thing to do. Working for money. I never considered I worked for money. I worked because I loved what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
If they're going to pay me a lot of money, more power to them. But when I got here, I had to do something else. Art is not very lucrative at the moment because over the years, I've lost the following that I had then.
Mhm.
So I'm not in the mainstream. So what am I going to do? I have to be creative. I don't want to build apps anymore. So I started writing. I thought about it. I talked it over with my partner, and we decided I should probably write. And the thought was that I would write books. So I thought, well, instead of jumping into the lake in the middle, I'll jump into the edge of the lake. I am adventurous, but I'm not dumb.
And you don't like wearing life rings either. Yeah.
So I started writing. I found Medium, which looked like a nice place to be. I have met some wonderful people in Medium. And
About Dancing Elephant Press. Why are you putting articles out on that as opposed to any one of other 42 publications that are out there on Medium?
Well, I've only worked with another 14 publications on Medium. But Dancing Elephants, I read an article and saw that it was published by Dancing Elephants Press. Anybody who would name their publication Dancing Elephants Press with those pictures behind you with the dancing elephant.
Yeah, with the elephant.
I said, this is my kind of person. I want to know something. And so I submitted myself as a writer. I was accepted. And they published the first thing I sent them. And I thought, how wonderful. And then since then, I have gotten acquainted with virtually the editing staff. And I love them. They are wonderful people.
Great people. Yeah.
The spirit of the publication is positive. It's do good. This is live a better life kind of a place.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of fits me. I like living a better life.
Well, it's about positivity. That's really the main thing that it's about is positive, living a more positive life, enjoying a more positive feeling within your life. And just generally, here's how you can be better, feel better, do better. You know, it's amazing.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and I met Gabriella during an interview, Zoom. Preeti interviewed me, Dr. Preeti Singh, and I loved talking to them. I mean, they are good people.
Mhm.
I
And,
have
and smart people, actually.
that was the other thing that attracted me. These are intelligent people.
Yeah, no question about it. But yeah, they're great people. And I understand you're going to get a chance to meet Gabriella this next month. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. She'll be in Tucson.
Yeah. Well, she'll be here as well. She's going
Yeah.
to live in my live. She's going to come up here and spend a little time with us and get to know her a little better. And I'm really excited about that because she's gosh, just such a positive person, and she's somebody I admire. I spent a great deal of time in healthcare, and so I have that kind of a background with her. Um, but it's just a great thing to do, I think. That's what.
Yep, I agree.
Uh,
Sorry.
Now that you've done that, and I'm sorry for kind of moving this along, but um, let's talk for a minute about what we talked about that'll be cut off. Talk about this whole idea of relationships and so on and so forth, and why that's important to you and why you write about it. I mean, gosh, you've spent some time writing some of these most fabulous articles. I want to, let's see, share screen, and there it is right there. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can.
All right, great. Well, one of the things that impressed me is that just you can run through these topics here, just plotting through life's twists and turns. You can imagine what that's about. And what you have to say about it is amazing. And the unbreakable oath and journey to spiritual heights, never ending questions, your eternal flame, love languages. I particularly like that one because it's a really, really important concept. And your love's saga's compass. Um, we talked about this before, Rick, but it's really important that people understand how to make a marriage last. I've told so many young people. I was a minister for 22 years, and so I've told so many young people. They come to me, well, how do you make your marriage last? How does that work? And so I tell them, well, there's a lot of ways you can make it last, but let me tell you how you can end it really quickly. When your husband or wife comes home and they drop their shoes on the floor and you walk it someplace else and you go, hey, you left your shoes on the floor. You did that about 10 or 12 times in a row, and you're pretty close to getting divorced. Then when they go in the shower and they brush their teeth, and you go, why on earth do you squeeze from the middle of the tube? I don't get it. You got to stop that. Or complain about leaving the toilet seat up or down. Anything that you start picking on is a reason to end that marriage. So if you want to end your marriage, all you got to do is find something like that, start picking on it, and you will end it. What you've provided is a list. And as I said to you earlier, I said, this should be plastered on the wall somewhere like wallpaper. And then people could say, remember rule 3, you got to go to that. Let's talk about that for a minute. And I think that's absolutely right. I wrote a piece on questions. I think my wife and I spent 2 weeks asking each other's questions. Now, that's one thing to know those things and be able to have that understanding with each other. But then there's a bunch of rules, all these rules, not rules per se. I don't want to say that, but guidelines for sure about what makes a good relationship and how you maintain that relationship. Anybody can buy a car, but how many cars do you see going down the road that aren't maintained? most of them. Here in Vegas, it's a little different. We had a lot of high-end cars. But the point is, there's a lot of cars on the road that aren't maintained. They could be, they could last a long time. I've got an older car, people look at it and go, man, it looks like brand new. Well, I maintained it. And a relationship is exactly the same way. And I think, Rick, you've just hit the nail on the head when you wrote this article, and you've got a follow-up to it. Sorry, it doesn't come to mind right offhand, but you just wrote that the other day, I think yesterday or the day before. And that should be together. I've encouraged Rick to put this in a book, even if it's a little mini book that you buy put on your Kindle. It's just so important. So anyway, your thoughts, Rick?
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you that I proudly wear the scars of the learning experience to get started.
I love that term. Thank God they can't see most of them anyway.
Yeah, I have so far managed 35 years of marriage, but it took me 3 wives to get there.
Yeah.
And that period of my life was over 23 years ago. Since then, I've been an extreme introvert up until just the last 5 years. And when I came out of the introversion, I came out with my partner. And we are very different. I mean, very different. I mean, we're both wartime kids, but she was on the other side. We grew up, you and I grew up in this country, and
Right.
everything was all promise.
Yep.
She grew up in a defeated country.
Mm-hmm.
Things were not all promise. Not only defeated, but divided.
Yeah.
So we were raised differently.
Nothing like having a big wall in your backyard to
Yeah.
remind you that you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. So when we came together, we do have a lot in common, but we also have those core events in our life. And so when we came together, it was decided that we would talk. And so we schedule a time when one of us feels something is not right, something is uncomfortable. We will raise our hand and say, we need to talk.
Yeah.
We gather at the table, and there are rules. The person who called the meeting talks first, without interruption and without judgment. You get everything out. It doesn't have to be 20 minutes. It can be until you're done talking.
Sure.
Then the table rotates, not physically, but
Sure.
the other person has comparable time to say what they need to say, without judgment, without interruption. There is no reproach. We do not criticize, we do not reproach. And those are the rules. But by the end of that conversation, we are then both comfortable with what we're doing.
Right.
We talk it out. And at the beginning, it happened often because we are very different people.
The preconceived ideas weren't actually met, so therefore we needed to straighten that view out a little bit. Yeah.
My favorite negative word was expectations.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you have expectations, expect to be disappointed. I mean, that's one of those universal laws.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So we came through it well. Now we have those conversations, not even monthly. They just
Terrific.
spontaneously.
Well, Rick, we've kind of come to the end of this. I want to tell you, you're a fascinating person, and I suspect as I go through these interviews with other people, other writers that are on DEP, we'll find the same thing. But to find someone like yourself who's the same from the same generation, same year, and my gosh, even the same month, it's really great to meet you, and I look forward to reading your stuff all the time. It's right up there on my priority list of things to read, I can tell you. So thank
I-
you for what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate you reading me. We all suffer from that feeling like, is anybody out there really reading us?
Yeah, you feel like you've written a really great story and you get 100 claps and one comment, and you go, what the hell?
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, I encourage people to clap and especially to comment. Comments are more important than the claps. From
Oh
my
yeah.
perspective, yeah, just give us a comment. Say, this is the stupidest thing you've ever said. Or you could say something like, man, I really got this point. This was spot on. And
Yeah.
I agree with it and I live it. So I know it. And those kinds of things mean a lot. A
Yeah.
lot.
They do. Yeah.
All right. Well, Rick, you continue to have a great day there in Arizona, and we'll catch up with you on DEP. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.